welcome to Irish Medieval History. This week we have a really awesome mod. To be honest with you, when I first seen this mod being advertised to me, there was somebody who actually wrote to me, asked me could I review their mod. I assumed it wasn't going to be that great because most mods that get sent my way that's Irish history related are always a bit like, they're not amazing, they're not great or anything. But I started playing this last Friday and wow, it is good. The level of detail in this is absolutely amazing. It's far better than anything you'd find online. So that means I could clearly see straight away this person delved deep into the books. Absolutely amazing mod. Not only is it great historically, but I had so much fun playing it. Obviously, being a Munster man, I went straight down to the south of Ireland and playing as one of the Irish factions, based in 657 during the peak of the early medieval period, golden age for Ireland. Everyone else kind of off in the dark age since the collapse of the Roman Empire, which Michael knows all about.
Yeah, it's this is actually a great period. This is the start of, so many pinnacle points in Irish history. Well, you could say on the British Isles. This is we're getting some great literature coming through. This is actually, if anyone has an interest in clan like histories, marrying it with genetic, the DNA, modern DNA that we're doing these days. All the genealogies up to the annals obviously go way back, but they say around the 5th century, 6th century is actually when, before that is when it starts to get a bit mythical, a bit made up. But anything before that is starting to actually, most of the time, is starting to correlate with DNA evidence. So these annals and these genealogies are proving, for the most part, to be correct. So it's really great time, like this is almost like the end of Irish mythology and start of historical, the history. And so this game is great because you're learning, you're seeing these families, you get to play as these families. Like you went to Munster, I obviously went to Ulster. I had great fun trying to unite Ireland as an Ulsterman. And kind of I saw myself as a Brian O'Neill, Mark II. I'll admit I'm an Ulsterman, but I'll admit you can't beat Brian Boru.
I was about to get in there a nice little dig there. Can't beat Brian Boru, a Munster man who did unify Ireland.
Well, I mean, technically, the O'Briens did succeed in having Thomond taken out of Munster. So just saying. Right.
Anyway, back on subject. Yeah, you're right. This is the point. 657 is definitely a crossroad period, which we'll get to in a second. But yeah, the 5th century is the start of it. For a very long time, people thought Niall and the 9 hostages was a mythical figure in Irish history, that he belonged in the mythology section. However, with recent DNA finds, they actually did find that there was a root DNA, and they've nicknamed this root DNA Niall and the 9 hostages, and most likely, it was, as the way the historical notes have fit in with DNA records, it most likely was Niall and 9 hostages because he had so many children that ended up dominating the north of Ireland. Niall originally around 410, just before 410, around 390. Started off in the west of Ireland in Connacht. He was related to Con in the 100 Battles, who was a previous ancestor of Niall and 9 hostages. So he was already a rich kid. He was already very wealthy. And then suddenly out of nowhere, he came out of Connacht, out of the west of Ireland, took over the north of Ireland, and also took over the centre of Ireland and moved all the way over to what is today Dublin. He took over the entire north of Ireland. And with that, he got his name, Niall and the 9 hostages, because to keep all of that area loyal, he took a hostage from each one of those areas. Now, fast forward now to 657. Obviously, Niall has died off, and his family now has branched out. And with that, he's got many different branches of the family now who are fighting to become King of Tara. What we would call today High King of Ireland, over King even. And the reason why we call them High King of Ireland, to make it more easy on us, is because they were pretty much the most dominant faction in Ireland at the time. They had the biggest army. And as part of proof that you had right of kingship, not only did you have to be perfect on the face, perfect body, be able to produce children, and have you had to be so perfect. The weather outside actually had to be perfect. If fields failed, as in they wouldn't produce crops and food, if women weren't having children, all these problems could occur during your reign. It was your fault. Clearly, God was not on your side, and they had to get rid of you. And they write about failed kings having threefolded death. So out of all the different lineages and stuff, all the different branches of his family, only the perfect child would do. So it wasn't a case of the oldest child. Now, obviously, the oldest child had the biggest advantage, because obviously when the moment he turns 7, he's getting fostered into different houses, and he's making contacts, which is a lot to ask for a 7-year-old. But that was the reality. Is when he got fostered into a home, he had to get to know his foster family. Even the children that were fostered with him, he had to build a good relationship with them, because later on he would expect them to come over and back him in his role of pushing for kingship. And then when he took the kingship of Tara, it was at that point then he could reward all the people that were under him with lands and various other titles. So it was very good to back the first child. Now, the first child didn't always win the kingship here. Now, what's very interesting, and it does become a massive crossroad in Irish history, is that this is very unique. In 657, there are 2 brothers who take the kingship of Ireland, which is Bulverk and Diarmid, and they share it, right? Which sounds amazing at the time, okay? Now, we're at the very start of their reign. They've just taken over the kingship of Ireland. And in reality, for their entire reign, it was perfect. And their son as well, the first son that takes over after Diarmaid's death, he also has an absolute perfect reign. Seasons are perfect. There's no plagues. Absolutely perfect child, right? The problem happens a few generations after Diarmaid and Bertha, when suddenly in around 689 to 722, the different branches of that family then break, because they're having children and children. Eventually, the sons of those families, they all want to become King of Ireland, the High Kingship. Basically, as it was called at the time, King of Tara, right? They wanted to have the biggest army, etc., etc. So they end up all fighting each other around the place that we'll show later on, which is Slane. And they end up having a big civil war, which causes the other ancestor families of the ENL to basically take advantage of this and completely knock Slane out of the game. So today we're going to have a look at Slane, see how they are right now, and have a lot of fun, because this is a really fun mod, isn't it, Michael?
Yeah, I just, while we're setting this all up and everything, I'll just add, with regards to the O'Neill gene, it's still a wee bit up in the air with timelines and stuff like that, but there's definitely a progeny around the time, and they've obviously associated with Niall of the Nine Hostages. Much like the 3 colours, we can find the DNA evidence of the 3 colours, but their early ancestry is again disputed. And I know someone else in the comment section will put about your comment about the O'Neill, about the fact that they were probably a confederacy rather than all blood related paternal lines of Niall of the Nine Hostages. It is something we are aware of, but for the context of the game, we're not going. That would be a video on its own. So I'll call that a benchmark. We've mentioned it. Don't whinge about it.
Yeah, I'm not denying that either. It's quite clear because I seen the Dalcash who are around my area. They all try to kind of write themselves in to be related to Niall of the Nine Hostages, because they're all trying to justify their grabbing of land and stuff. So I'm not denying that. That's quite clear.
Very good.
Yeah, because they are the boys that they start off as High Kings of Ireland, and then what they want to do at the start is they want to take out their rivalship, because at this time they have gone into a agreement with the Northern ENL. So you have the Southern ENL and Northern ENL. and then in themselves have broken into different families. And so the Slane family have made an agreement with another Northern Inale family that they would take those. So when they would pass away, they would the Northern Inale then would take the kingship of, the High Kingship of Ireland. And then while they were in the south rebuilding their forces and stuff, then they would take the go again. And that's how they planned it. But then Slane ends up having a civil war then later on down the road, because there was two brothers that agreed that they would rule together. And then what happens then is that their families end up fighting and murdering each other later on, which is why we love medieval history. I love the imagery in this game. It's absolutely amazing. And it's the same with the music as well. If you're a huge fan of early medieval Ireland, just before the coming of the Vikings, the tone and atmosphere, that proper Gaelic, as other people would call it, Celtic atmosphere, is fully a part of this game. And another thing I really loved as well is the little jokes that's added in here. If you're into Irish television and stuff, you have got like a picture from Father Ted and everything in here, jokes from Father Ted and various other medias as well in here.
Here's,
I think that's Tommy Tiernan there in the middle of it. Yeah.
And then we have Father Ted.
Baldric is the King of Ireland on this, and then his brother Diarmid is Prince, right? And that's what called. Now, technically, they were both. I don't think there is a mechanic where you can make two kings at once, but that's what causes the break later on, is the fact that there's two of them. So that both two of his branches of the family then later on are fighting for the kingship, which causes the Slane Civil War.
But I'll tell you what, he's added. Now I saw mods like there was obviously mods for Rome Total War and stuff like Europa Barbaricum, and they put like these special houses and special traits and retinues for like House Sassanid and House Parthian and stuff like that. And he's done it too with titles of like King of Cashel. Here you've got the High King of Ireland. These are retinues you can gain in the game when you meet certain benchmarks in the game, which I think again just adds to that role play that and you do get benefits from having it.
Yeah. But another thing he's done, he's changed all the settlement buildings and stuff. Like he changed it from medieval, English style medieval buildings to Irish style with the ring fort and then the roundhouses inside. And I seen that and I was like, the level of detail is absolutely amazing in this game. Like, and he has the proper forts up and everything. Like, it is good. The level of detail in this is absolutely amazing. Like, I thought when he first messaged me, I thought, oh well, this must be a small little project. There must not be too much to it. He must have spent. It looks like work that would have taken years to do. Because I've been helping people with projects for the last 12, 13 years or something on Medieval 2, and they still haven't come out. They're still working away because it takes hours to do all this kind of stuff. And he messaged me the other day out of the blue, and all of this stuff is already done. And I'm like, how did he pull this off?
One thing, like I said,
especially by himself.
Yeah. This is still a demo as well, so the battle scenes do have the typical English medieval settlement style Medieval 2, but considering the amount of work this man's done for the game and the fact that it's a demo really is testament to his skill.
Because you can go straight over to his rival to it, because they're all getting mustered up to fight each other now over the right. The Southern Inale are getting ready to kick the crap out of each other over the right of High Kingship. Well, as it was called at the time, the King of Tara.
He has said that he's looking to add more factions into these as well. So, but he even has a bit of Wales, and a wee bit of Scotland, obviously part of the Irish Kingdom Del Raider at the time.
Yeah. Because the Irish at the time, the Irish actually were pushing into Wales and Scotland as well. So that is actually historically accurate to have a bit of Wales and Scotland in there. So everything you do in this either happened at some period during the Golden Age of Ireland, which happened between 410 all the way up to 795. So that's around 200, 300 years of history. So you do have Munster, advancing out, and you do have the north advancing out with the northern ale, southern ale, so on and so forth.
Anyone with any sort of link to Ireland, all the main sort of, the main here would be, you'd have they eventually become the O'Kellys, these I'm gonna say Dunlees, but it's not how you pronounce it. But they would eventually, after obviously, they would eventually become the O'Byrnes. So if you have these links to these, the fact that you can get into them and play almost as your ancestors and try and take back Ireland, I think just makes it fun all on its own, regardless of anything else, for role playing especially. The units. So we get into the units quickly.
Yeah, the units are funny. Obviously he's got the basic nobles and stuff in there, but he also has a few kerns and stuff in there. I'm not sure if kerns, because obviously the Fenian are very important. They literally pop up in all the literature in this period. The kerns, I'm not quite sure if they pop up in the early medieval period. I'm not sure if historians know if they were a part of the early medieval period or not, because they're just not in the literature yet. If you read the Fin cycle and stuff, they mostly go through the most is the Fenian, because the Fenian are what most of the stories are made up of. You have basically what the Fenian are a bunch of, for the most part, a bunch of young fellows waiting to inherit their lands. They're put into the outskirts of society. Basically, before then, at the age of 7, they're put into a fosterage home where they're raised by the fosterage family. And then around the age of 14, then they're sent out into war bands and stuff. And basically, the saying was, it was mostly, boys are boys. So basically, they were allowed to go out there and be boys, get into fights, hoard themselves around. Absolutely wild. They went to the outskirts of society, and they just did. They got into fights with the war bands. They would go off into brothels. They would go drinking. That was what he did. That's what takes up most of the literature at the time.
He has a very almost like a replica of Gallowglass as well. So he does try to interpret other units that are from outside the timescale, but I think that's more to do with giving you more scope to play with unit stuff.
I was thinking as well, it was more or less to balance out the game rather than anything else. Another word for Fenian, Kern, we'll put that in there, because it balances the game out better, and also adds in different units, so on and so forth. So given different interpretations is handy for a video game because it balances it out. He also has basically, like, he has what an army would look like at that period. It's not like he's gone completely off into his own fantasy world. He's just given different forms of interpretation to the army at the time, because we have when it comes down to naming names, every once in a while you do come across a name, like a name for a female Fenian, a name for a bowman. You have different names like this and stuff might appear, but we have very little to work with, especially in the year 657. We have far more to work with once the Vikings come in, because the Vikings bring in new words for us to work with and stuff. And obviously, because the Viking Age is around 795 to 1014, more literature from that period survives compared to literature from the Golden Age of Ireland between 410 and 795, which is a shame. But if you think about it, it does make sense that literature from an amazing golden age wouldn't survive as much as the early medieval period. In fact, the majority of the literature that we do have from the golden age of Ireland is actually a copy from what came from the Viking Age later on.
Or other special units each faction has as well, so that does create some diversity in the game whenever you play with it. I will just make a point though. He does make a point that he borrowed the artwork and the the assets for the units from another mod. He does credit them in his. So we will also credit them as well, because I don't want him getting in trouble through us. So this is from another. These assets are from another mod as well. So we'll put the link below if you're also interested in that too. But going back to the thing, back to the game.
Would love to go back. It's funny you bring up the Last Kingdoms, because I actually worked on that mod. history-wise, years and years and years back now. Other people now have changed and moved around, and I was looking at it the other day, and I was like, since I've done that was a good 10 years ago or something when I was back doing the Leaving Cert, and since then, like I've learned way more about Irish history, and so much more Irish history has come to light. So much has been translated, and I looked back at it the other day, and I was like, God, I love to fix all of it now. Like,
So we'll come out here and then quickly check another one. Sligo.
Aye. That's in Assassin's Creed Valhalla as well. I was looking at an advert done the other day. I've actually added into a playlist. If you guys are looking for a playlist on Irish Viking history, I'm like slowly putting it together from other YouTubers and stuff, and just having the full list. And my ultimate plan eventually over time is to actually put together the entire history of the Irish Vikings, because you can easily go online and find the whole history of Norway, Denmark, Sweden. But anytime I bring up a conversation about the Irish Vikings, who, in my opinion, me not being biased now, are the most interesting, but yet nobody knows anything of it. So I've decided to go online, because there's already amazing videos on Flann Sinna, on Ivor the Boneless, various other people who contribute to Irish Viking history, and I've actually started to put together and arrange in order the history of the Irish Vikings, and any parts that's missing, I'm actually going to go over and start filling that up over time, and also just cover Irish Viking history as well. And that's going to be one side project. I'm also going to start putting together the Golden Age of Ireland history and late medieval, War of the Roses. These are all just going to be side projects I'll slowly but surely work on. You see, this is the branch now that ends up dominating. So as I was saying earlier, the Slane side end up having a civil war later on. So they end up having a pretty good right now. But what happens, because the two brothers were sharing a kingship, their families later on end up having a civil war amongst each other, with a third faction as well, a third branch of the Slane. And so this branch ends up dominating to the point where by the time the Vikings come over with Mael Shocknall I and Flann Sinna, they want to switch Ireland from the system that they have where they're taking goes over the King of Tara. Mael Shocknall I and Flann Sinna just outright call themselves King of Ireland. In the literature itself, it's no longer King of Tara from such a time to such a time. It literally blatantly says in full capital writing, King of Ireland, Mael Shocknall I, and Flann Sinna then goes to Clan MacNoise in the centre of Ireland. There he erects a huge statue to his father, Mael Shocknall I, to show to everyone in Ireland, my father was the first King of Ireland. Then he also erects a big massive cross to himself as well in Clan MacNoise, where he identifies once again as King of Ireland. And Flann Sinna finishes off the conquest that his father started. However, he then gets sort of usurped as a puppet king by the Northern Nael. The Northern Nael killed Flann Sinna's first son. His other son, to a different marriage, works with Northern Nael to usurp his father. So then he isn't as identified the way Brian Boru is, where Brian Boru was identified by his son. His son takes over the kingship, but then the son loses the majority of the island to the other clans and stuff. Flann Sinna's son usurps him, helps in his usurpation. So they go back to the old system where they take goes between the Northern Nael to the Southern Nael. Then the Irish Vikings end up dominating the whole area. And then again, later on again, Brian Boru, just when the Southern Nael, this whole family end up dominating again with Mael Shocknall II, Brian Boru comes out of nowhere and ends up just taking over the entire island.
It really is a long game that you can really get into it, a proper campaign that you're not going to complete in 2 or 3 days. You're not going to get bored of, and if you do find yourself sort of drifting out, you've got so many factions to choose from, which is just something again that Britannia was just missing out on. Really, this really does open up the complexities of clan society and tribal society in Ireland. At the same time, still showing the links. Look, if you got here, the Connacht, the Enil, Southern Enil, Southern Enil, even though these are different factions, it still shows you, and with the game limitations, that these families are related. The Onoctor actually is a brilliant one. We all know, well, many people know that the Onoctor had a slightly more unique handing over of titles, Tanistry on steroids. Really, it was more amongst. It was more rather than a senior member of a clan. It was more like a senior member of a clan within a clan. It was really just so you would have these branches, the Onoctor Cashel, and stuff rotating the Glenmanic branches, all trying to rotate the kinship within themselves. And this game really does sort of touch on that with all these separate branches, which I just think is something that's often missed in games that try to represent Ireland.
I was playing as Munster this whole weekend, and I was just transported in. I didn't want to leave it. I had to go do research and further research into this and stuff, and I didn't want to leave the game. I wanted to keep at it because it was so much fun, because the way the game is balanced, and it's very difficult to balance history in a game. But this is way ahead. I mean, this is absolute, the way it balances it is absolutely amazing. I preps to him, trying to mod it as well, I think this went back to a more high medieval housing estate, because it's still just a demo right now. But
yeah,
if you can pull that off, it's pretty amazing.
Yeah, if you anything for buildings, but even then,
I think they've already pushed the limits of what they can do creation wise. Because I'd love to see some kind of cattle raiding, or some kind of cattle raiding currency or something brought into it. I think we still have gold. Maybe you could switch that over to cows instead. And other than that, I think it's perfect the way it is. As I was saying before, and we were meant to make a note of this as well. It has that proper Gaelic vibe. Talking about Gaelic and stuff, Michael here is trying to sell off his t-shirts and stuff over on his page. And as we were saying before, when we were trying to put together t-shirts and stuff to sell off, as every other YouTuber is doing, we didn't want to have, just another knockoff, t-shirt with some random YouTuber that your friends don't even know. It's not some random cheap YouTuber's random name that you wear around and nobody knows what you're wearing. This is just straight up Irish medieval t-shirts. It literally has the coat of arms, the family, and then a really awesome medieval gallows glass on it. People would see a mile away, and so literally comment saying, "Oh yeah, I'm into Irish medieval history myself," blah blah blah. Have a gawk and a look at it. Other than that, lads, I hope you enjoyed the video. Really enjoyed this mod. It's only a demo right now. Definitely give your feedback down below, because the modder will be reading all the comments. He found us on YouTube, so he'll definitely be reading the comments and stuff. Other than that, lads, I'm sure you're probably already subscribed to the channel. If you like anything that's Irish and medieval and the two of them together, definitely subscribe to the channel. Ring the bell button so you're definitely subscribed. You've got the notification for the video straight away. Right now, for Irish medieval history, we're aiming to get videos up on the Wednesday and the Sunday, mostly Saturday. That's what I'm aiming to get the video out for. Next week now, we've got obviously this video that's going up today on Wednesday, and then on Saturday, hopefully it's up for Saturday, I'm going to do Ireland and the 100 Years' War. It's a lot of work, so I hope a lot of people appreciate it. It quite literally is in the title. It's 100 years of research is what it feels like. I've done a lot of work to put into this, while dealing with some random trolls that talk about modern left-wing nationalism or right-wing nationalism, and I'm just like going right past my head going, I'm whatever I want you to be, boy, or whatever. I don't care about modern politics. But other than that, lads, thanks very much and goodbye.